I need a baby. If not, I'll lose everything. The words left my mouth on a bright summer morning, beneath a sky so painfully blue it felt like a mockery of my desperation. The sun was rising over endless fields, the grass glistening with dew, cows grazing peacefully as if the world was simple and kind. But inside me, a storm was raging, violent and merciless. She looked at me without blinking, her expression unreadable, and then she said quietly, "Then meet my condition. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel, Midnight Tales. Your support keeps these stories alive. My name is Callum Reyes, and everything I had was hanging by a thread that morning. The farm behind her was not just land and livestock. It was legacy. It was survival. It was my late father's final breath poured into soil and timber. And it was slipping away because of one brutal clause in his will. I had to have a child within a year of his passing to inherit the property. If I failed, the entire estate would go to a distant corporate buyer who had been circling like a vulture for years. At 32, single and drowning in debt from failed harvests and medical bills from my father's illness, I had no partner, no fiancé, not even someone willing to pretend. I had pride once, but desperation had a way of stripping that away piece by piece. And that was how I found myself standing in front of Maribel Vance. Maribel had grown up on the neighboring farm. We were childhood rivals once, racing horses along the fence lines, arguing over whose cattle were stronger. But life had carved different paths into us. She had left for the city, built a successful veterinary practice, and returned after her divorce with more scars than she let anyone see. I had stayed, loyal to the land, watching it wither under droughts and loans I could barely repay. When I asked her for help, it wasn't romantic. It wasn't even noble. It was raw and humiliating. I told her the truth. If I didn't have a baby, the farm would be sold, my father's grave overshadowed by industrial machinery, and every memory of my family erased. She didn't laugh. She didn't pity me either. She simply listened, her eyes steady, thoughtful. And then she said she would help me, but only if I met her condition. Her condition was not what I expected. She didn't demand money or marriage. She didn't ask for public recognition or control of the land. She asked for honesty and partnership. If we were to bring a child into the world, it would not be a transaction. It would be shared responsibility. She would move into the farmhouse. We would raise the baby together. And most importantly, I would agree to let her turn part of the farm into an animal rehabilitation sanctuary, something she had dreamed of since childhood. At first, I felt cornered. The farm was barely surviving. Adding a sanctuary seemed reckless. But as she spoke about injured animals, about giving broken creatures a place to heal, something shifted in me. Maybe the farm didn't need to remain frozen in my father's version of the past. Maybe it could become something new. I agreed. The months that followed were nothing like I imagined. Maribel moved into the east wing of the farmhouse, bringing boxes of veterinary equipment and a quiet determination that filled every room. We argued over small things: where to build the new fencing, how much money to allocate to feed, whether the old barn could be salvaged. But beneath the disagreements was a growing respect. During the day, we worked side by side under the blazing sun. She treated injured calves and rescued stray dogs from nearby highways. I repaired fences and negotiated feed prices. Slowly, the sanctuary began to take shape. Word spread across the county. Farmers started bringing injured animals instead of putting them down. Volunteers arrived on weekends, their laughter echoing across fields that had once felt heavy with grief. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday morning filled with golden light, Maribel handed me a small envelope. Her hands were steady, but her eyes shimmered. The test was positive. For the first time since my father died, I fell to my knees, not in defeat, but in overwhelming gratitude. Fear was still there, coiled in my chest, but it was no longer alone. It was joined by hope. Pregnancy changed everything, not just the future, but the present. I watched Maribel move through the sanctuary with one hand resting unconsciously on her growing belly, whispering reassurances to trembling animals. I saw strength in her I had never noticed as kids. She wasn't helping me out of charity. She was building something with me. But challenges didn't vanish. The corporate buyer tried to accelerate the legal deadline, claiming I wouldn't meet the requirements in time. Financial pressure tightened again when a storm destroyed part of the fencing. I lay awake many nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had dragged Maribel into disaster. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun melt into amber and pink, I confessed my fear. I told her I was terrified of failing, of being a father who couldn't protect his child, of losing everything anyway. She didn't offer empty reassurance. She placed her hand over mine and reminded me that a child didn't need perfection. A child needed love, presence, and courage to keep trying. And for the first time, I understood her condition fully. It was never about the sanctuary alone. It was about building a life rooted in compassion rather than desperation. The day our daughter was born, the sky was bright and mercifully clear. I held her tiny body in my trembling arms and felt something inside me rearrange permanently. The deadline was met, the will's requirement fulfilled, the farm was legally ours. But in that hospital room filled with morning light, I realized something profound. I hadn't saved the farm because I needed land. I had fought because I needed purpose. And purpose had found me in the form of a woman brave enough to demand more than convenience, and a child whose first cry sounded like redemption. Years later, the Vance Reyes Sanctuary became known across the state. School buses visited during the day. Children fed goats and learned about empathy. The corporate buyer eventually withdrew, unable to compete with a community united by kindness. Maribel and I never had a grand romantic confession. Love grew quietly between shared responsibilities, sleepless nights, and the simple act of choosing each other every day. It was not dramatic. It was real. Sometimes I stand at the same fence where I once begged her for help. The cows still graze. The sun still rises. But I am no longer the desperate man afraid of losing everything. I am a father, a partner, a guardian of land that now heals more than it produces. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that second chances often come with conditions that make us better, please like this video, share it, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps stories like this reach someone who might need hope today. And before this story ends, I have a special request. Comment the word hope if you believe that even in desperation, something beautiful can grow. Because sometimes, the condition we fear is the very thing that saves us.